Well, good morning again. Donald said tough crowd. So can't believe I got a tough crowd after that game yesterday. No. What do we take joy in contentment in? Content to let the world go by and know no gain or loss. Content to let the world go by. I find I'm not content to let the world go by. I want things my way. And here in Ruth chapter 3, continuing our study here of Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz, and this beautiful love story that God left for us so that we can visualize what He did for us. How we were brought in as strangers out of the land of Moab, and our kinsman Redeemer covered us. We lost our identity as a wicked sinner. And we'll see here as, Boaz covers Ruth with his cloak. If you're under someone's cloak, when they look at you, all they see is you. They don't see the person hidden under you. We're hidden under our kinsman Redeemer so that when God looks at us, He sees Jesus. He don't see me with my wicked sin and my shortcomings. And in that, we should have had a good week in the Lord. And I hope you did have a good week in the Lord. And one of the things, like Donald said, be in the church when we leave here. I told y'all a long time back about the guy that one of the managers that went to one of the most successful Weight Watcher centers in America at the time when Weight Watchers was big. They were successful. People that went there lost a lot of weight. And he went there and he spoke to them and he told them, he says, y'all don't lose weight because of what you do while you're here at this meeting. You lose weight because of what you do when you're not here at this meeting. And I hope that when we're not here, that we're able to apply what we learn here. This Bible points us to Jesus. It's about Him. It's not about us. And this story here is given, we can marvel at what a beautiful love story this is, but this just points us to Christ and to the cross. And it said in the New Testament, this is given for our examples. And here in Ruth chapter 3 here, we're going to see how this plays out, where Naomi has perceived what God is up to. And I told y'all a while back, when we talked about the kingdom cometh without observation, and how Brother Joseph shared that there was a sign in the front yard there that had been there, he just never observed it. Didn't mean it wasn't there in observing the kingdom. The will of God, you hear that a lot. Well, it's God's will. When Jesus prayed, He said, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be Thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now, He wasn't asking God to do His will. He was stating that God was going to do His will and that He was going to accept that. And that's something I struggle with here. And let's look at this in verse 1 here. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, now this is after the barley harvest and all, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? And we talked last time a lot about marriage and finding rest in marriage and the way God instituted marriage for men and women. But here she's going to give Ruth some instructions. Now listen, what appears evil to us now, or ill-willed now, was not that way back then. Okay? The Levirate marriage concept to us is very foreign. If you take now where if a man died and his brother stepped in and married the woman, we would think that's strange. For the brother-in-law to marry the woman of the man that just died. But that was the way God ordained it. In Genesis, I think it was 38, was the first instance of that. And in Deuteronomy 25, He gave the children of Israel direct instructions because it's the family unit and the preservation of the family name and the family land. That's how God ordained it to be done here. So when we read this is going to seem foreign to you. I want to kind of open your mind up. If you have time, read Deuteronomy 25 and look at Genesis 28 and research that about the Levirate marriage and how this worked. And the woman here is to present herself to the man and ask for redemption. There was two other ways this could be done. She could go to the gate and ask the elders, or tell the elders that she wanted to be redeemed. And if he refused, there was a lot of shame and disgrace about that. But so this is going to seem strange to us, but don't let our Western cultures blind. Listen, God put this here for a reason for us to see it, or it wouldn't have been here. And there's no sin or glorification of sin or ill will here in these verses about how Naomi's going to instruct her to do this. This is their custom. This was the way marriage was done in these days. It wasn't taken so lightly as it is now. Men used to have to pay a dowry for a woman. Donald, you would have made some money there. Because it was a loss for the family. They were giving up their daughter. And that's repeated over and over throughout the Old Testament. And we've gotten away from that. You know, the parents used to go obtain a bride for their son. We cheapened all that, so now divorce is nothing. It didn't cost me anything. I can get rid of it. We've gotten away in a lot of ways in our Western culture, we've gotten away from the way God set out to do things for us. And if we apply these principles and we look at this, I mean, even the lost can do the laws and the commandments of God and prosper. And that's the danger here, you know, with the prosperity gospel. And I'm getting off in a rabbit hole here, but I wanted y'all to see something here about the will of God. We talk about that. And I've explained to you now about how the marriage customs were here. She says, and now is not Boaz our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast, because he winneth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor, but make not thyself known unto the man, until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. In verse 5 here, and she said unto her, all that thou sayest unto me, I will do. Again, we're seeing here the submissiveness of Ruth. And you got to remember, she's a strange. This has got to be strange to her. She grew up in the land of Moab. And a lot of times, you know, as new young Christians, and like coming here out of organized religion, a lot of things that Mike taught were strange. This was different. But I would go and research the Word, and what I would have to say is, all thou sayest, that will I do. The will of God. How are we ever going to do the will of God if we're constantly imposing our will? How are we ever going to meet up with Boaz if we're constantly... She could have said, I'm not doing this way. Now, we know the reason she told her to put on raiment, a different raiment, she's probably still wearing her garments that she wore as a widow, because her husband's dead. I mean, Naomi here pretty much laid out for step by step, this is what you're going to do, this. And what she say? All thou sayest unto me, I will do. I got up yesterday morning with great plans of what I was going to accomplish for the day. And I got a phone call from somebody needing help. And it disrupted my day. Why? God had something different for me yesterday than what is it Proverbs says? Proverbs 16:9. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. The Lord had a different course for me yesterday. And at first, I can't lie to y'all and tell y'all I was just shouting hallelujah that I got to go do that, because my wife's here and she'll tell y'all different. But I loaded up and I went and did what was asked of me. And there was a blessing in that in the end. But this flesh wants what it wants. I don't want to do the will of God. I don't want to do all that thou sayest unto me, I will do. When I first come here and heard what Mike was teaching, that was different. And there was a tendency of my flesh to say, I don't know. I don't want to be the church when I leave here. I want to be me. I want to do what I want to do. The most elusive thing for us as Christians is the will of God. But does He hide it from us? Naomi here, she has pivoted from being so bitter in the beginning, where we're calling her Mara, to now she's helping. God has opened her eyes. Ruth didn't just happen into that field, and she knows it. She already said she knew God was dealing with her. He dealt bitterly with her. And I've had him deal bitterly with me because I needed it. Because I was over there in Moab where it didn't belong. And he had to bring me back to Bethlehem. And in doing that, Naomi had surrendered her will. And here Ruth has, all that thou sayest, I will do. If our will is that, we cannot impose our will on God's will and expect to grow spiritually. It don't work. Do you know what God's will for your life is? If you don't know, whose fault is that? It's awful quiet in here this morning. And I've had to ask myself this. I was telling John this week, with some changes at my job, and I said, this is going to be really bad for me. And then I started laughing. I said, and I just threw Romans 8:28 out the window right there. If this is going to be bad for me, then Romans 8:28 ain't true. This is going to be good for me. I might not like it at first, because my flesh says, no, I want things to stay the same. I hate change. Their lives have all changed here, haven't they? And they're slowly accepting it. The hardest part is to get rid of our will. And that's the message I want to convey to you this week. When we start Monday out, I've already got my day planned out tomorrow. But I know by 5 o'clock it ain't going to look nothing like what I planned it. Just like yesterday did. And I can either bow and worship and say, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Or I can miss Boaz. Because I'm a stranger in the land. These customs are not normal to me. What am I going to do? Am I going to bow and worship and say, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven? Or is it going to be Clay's will be done? My idols start getting in the way. There was things I wanted to do yesterday, things I had set my affections on down here, and I did not have them. I didn't want to be a servant yesterday. I wanted to be me. Y'all, I got some laughs now. Y'all identify with that. That's what we all really want. Our flesh, we cannot, it's hard to die daily. That's why Paul said, I die daily. Y'all don't think he fought that? If you will, go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Knowing the will of God is one's greatest knowledge. Doing the will of God is one's greatest accomplishments. That was said by somebody anonymously. And John MacArthur said this about God's will. In order to find God's will for the future, you must be doing God's will in the present. In order to do God's will in the future, you got to be doing God's will right now. I believe probably everybody in this room this morning is in God's will. We're here at the house. We've not forsaken the assembly of ourselves. I woke up this morning, Melissa put my electric blanket on the bed because I done got cold. And I stuck my nose out this morning and I did not want to crawl out of that warm bed. My flesh said, just lay here. But my spirit said, I want to go see my brothers and sisters and worship and be fed. Because I know the devil's waiting next week. And he's going to cheer me on to impose my will on what God has for me, just like he did yesterday. But through Jesus, we are more than conquerors. Be of good cheer, I have overcome. And if he covers us as our kinsman redeemer, then we can overcome this. I can bow and worship. By the end of the day, I was praising the Lord for what he had done. Paul here is writing to Thessalonica. You got to remember, these New Testament churches, they didn't have this whole Bible like we got. This was foreign to them too. Just like these Levirate marriage customs are foreign to us. And Paul's giving them instructions here. I'm circling back here to, if you don't know God's will, where do you start? I know by prayer and supplication. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask. The fear of the Lord is what? The beginning. Wisdom. John's been talking a lot about the fear and that treasure that it is, because that's wisdom. And Proverbs tells us a lot about seeking that wisdom. So what do we do with our will? How do we get out of our will and get into God's will? And this verse, This verse came to mind yesterday, and I called John when I was on the way to that thing. I was telling him about how I was snarling on, and Brother Jamie Walker here brought a message here one time about the interruptions are the service. You read the life of Jesus, everywhere he went, people were interrupting him. And did he turn them away? He stopped and helped. He's dying on the cross. The man says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. So where do we find God's will? If we're new to this, we're just starting out, or we've gotten out of God's will, so to speak. We're over in Moab, and the Lord's dealt bitterly with us. Well, Paul here is giving these people in direction, this church here, directions in Thessalonica. He's writing this from Athens. And he's in this chapter here, he starts giving what we call staccato commands or instructions. Just do this. These are good instructions for you. This is going to seem foreign to you. You don't know about this, but this is how you do it. And in verse 18 here of chapter 5, he says, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Hello? In everything, give thanks. This is what bent me back around yesterday. I had to stop and say, in everything, give thanks. Not in some things. I had to go back to, like I said, this is going to be bad for me with my job. No. Romans 8:28. So do we bow? If we start bowing and worshiping in the things that come in that we don't want. I told y'all a while back, R.C. Sproul said, if you believe in the providence of God, there are no tragedies. So in everything give thanks. That sounds easy, don't it? It's not. It's very difficult. Because things are going to come up tomorrow. Things are going to come up Tuesday. Things are going to come up Wednesday. And I'll find myself, unlike Ruth, saying, what thou sayest I will do. Saying, no, I'm not going to wear that garment. I'm going to do something different. When I get to the threshing floor, I'm going to make myself known. I'm going to make a name for myself. She told her, don't make yourself known to the man. Be discreet about it. A lot of times we want to find verses here so we can quote them to people. Beat them over the head with it. Make ourselves known. Is that the will? That's my will. May our prayer this week be, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and what thou sayest I will do. May the Lord bless you in the coming days.